Hi, welcome to Parenting Challenging Kids. I have a couple of questions that have come through in the last week or so, and I have a lot of fun answering these questions. So I thought I would just send them to everybody because one person has a question, there's hundreds of others that do as well. So the first question that came through was how to stop my son from arguing or backtalk about everything. This is such a good question because who doesn't have this? And it doesn't even seem to matter anymore if they're a teenager or not. Like our kids are, it's almost like their brains are wired to give this back talk. I love how Super Nanny says that it's back chat. And it is actually wired to do that. And so if your child, especially if they have ADHD or impulse control issues or even autism, it's kind of wired there. But also, like, this may have been going on for a long time, and maybe they don't have a diagnosis, but they have all the behaviors. This is like social language stuff and training. So the first thing that I always recommend for parents to do that will change your life is to really work on getting a good response. So what you want your kids to say when you're telling them to do something, when you're directing them, is you don't want them to ask why. You don't want them to start whining. You don't want them to start arguing with you. You want them to give a good response, which is yes, mom, yes, dad. And it needs to be very clear. I have some families that will try, like, okay, I don't like yes, mom, yes, dad. It sounds too formal, or it doesn't, feel good to them. And that's fine if that's what you decide. If you're working with me individually, you know that I'm going to say it has to be yes, mom, yes, dad, because the research shows that it changes the brain. It rewires their brain anytime we give a good response. And so it's good for us too. It means that you have to think about what you're saying, because a lot of times what we call defiance or backtalk is also on us because we are not being very clear. We're asking them, so did you want to go do this right now? Or how about you go pick up your shoes? Or we're sarcastic about it, or whatever. And then we don't like the response that we get. So you want to set it up so that you get that response. And then the way that we teach kids to do it is we're not militant about it. We don't make them do push-ups. We're not having a boot camp experience here. But you need to be aware that you have to teach it and you have to start requiring it. And so however, if you get really solid on it, and if your kids are young, do it. It's such a life changer. And it's a good reminder as they get older, like right now, you just need to say yes, mom. And we're kind of doing it. So if they keep arguing, if they're like, well, I want to tell you something, it's like, I'm not listening to that right now. Don't keep using more words. Just be quiet. Our kids' arguments come a lot from the way that we kind of engage with them. It's so easy to get into a power struggle just with our words and not even really be aware that we're doing it. And so I just caution you to use less words. So it's like if they, you tell them it's time to turn the TV off and go get ready for bed, and they're just kind of sitting there, you're going to move in closer. Remember, we talked about this. You need to say yes, mom, and let's do it. You can also give them, like you can turn it off, or I will. You can give them the easy way or the hard way, right? If you're having big blow-ups for something like that, I even hate using any kind of electronic thing because I've seen parents actually get really hurt when you're making this transition. So I want to be really careful that if you're having aggression after that, it's not just back talk. It's not just asking why or saying I don't want to. And it's more, then you really need to work with somebody like me that's a behavior specialist that knows how to help you to create a safe home, because I don't want the violence to keep getting worse. So be very careful if you already have aggression. But you still can teach your kids to say yes, mom, yes, dad, I don't prefer as much yes ma'am, yes sir. I know some of the kids I've worked with in the South, that's not hard for them because they say it. It's more required in certain parts of our country. So good for them. It still changes their brain, but in the family, I still like to use mom and dad. So that's one way that we stop. The other way is to not engage in it. Like, you don't need to convince them. Use less words. If you say to do it and they don't give a good response, you might give a reminder, like, or you might just stand there and wait, and they're like, what? It's like waiting for you to say yes, mom, and then let's go. And then you may just move with them, like, let's go. You know, you're not forcing them, but your body doubling, like, let's go. So that's a short answer to a question that you could talk about a lot. In fact, I probably have. And so if you look at some of the other videos, you might find more about backtalk and arguing and why we give a good response. All right, next question. This has to do with school stuff. There was a couple of questions about that, so I kind of lumped them together. The first one is, should I push for an IEP or a 504 at school? So an IEP is an individual learning plan, and the 504 is it puts supports in place, and that's kind of the main difference. That's a very simplistic way to explain it. An IEP, at least in the state that I'm in, I believe the kids have to be behind also academically. If they're not struggling academically, or if they have a diagnosis like ADHD, autism, things like that, you can get an IEP. Usually they have to be delayed in some way for that. A 504, they may still have the same delays. They could even have a diagnosis, but it's more geared to putting supports in. It doesn't have to do with the academics so much. It's usually behavior, things like that. What I have found over the years of doing this is that the IEPs get a little bit more weight. The school seems to weigh in it a little bit more when you'll even hear things like, well, it's just a 504. But really it's equal to the IEP. For either one of putting them in place, you as the parent need to be very clear about what it is that you want it to happen. You can't just say, I want an IEP, and not have anything else that you want for that. Unfortunately, even the teachers that are seeing the need for it, in most states, they're not allowed to drive that. Like they can't say, like, you could ask for this or you can ask for that, but you can ask for certain things, and the school, for the most part, will do their best to try to accommodate that. And some schools will tell you that they can't. And I've had them say that about some even basic things, like, we don't have any money, or things like that. It's like, yeah, but you are required to have this if we need it. So you may need a family advocate to help you with that if you're having a struggle in your school district. If you are having a struggle in your school district, please don't say anything about that your kid can hear. If you're going to send them someplace every day, 8 hours a day, you want to make sure that you're portraying that this is the absolute best place for them to be, and any struggles that you're having in getting things set up so that it can be even better needs to not involve the child. Like, they're doing this or they're doing that. Like, be just very careful about that. When should you push for an IEP or a 504? Here's some guidelines that I use. If there's a threat that because of their behaviors, not just like once in a while or all of a sudden they started having these adverse behaviors, but their behaviors are part of their diagnosis. We're not trying to excuse those behaviors away, but we need the school to work with us to build the support so that this child can be successful. And that's what we're looking at. And that's even how I kind of look at the diagnosis is like, why do we need that? And how is it going to help us to learn to put the supports into place? Because the truth is there's no medication that's going to make it all better. And that's not against medication. Sometimes that medication is the only thing kind of at least sort of holding it together, allowing us to get sleep or allowing them to concentrate, to kind of have their brain with the potential to function better. So I'm not against medication. It's just that there's behavior supports that we have to put in place. There's executive functioning skills that have to be developed, and there's no medication that's going to do that for you as a parent or for the school system. So that's when we have to really look at, like, if something's not working, if we're having repetitive things happening, if you have a kid that is suddenly like failing or not turning things in, like let's look at what we can do to support that child and what needs to happen. And this is where, like, again, you may need somebody to help you to kind of work through that, because it can become kind of an us and them. Like, well, if you as the parents would do more homework with them and whatever, so if you can build a team there, that's what I recommend. And then you can kind of look some things up about whether they need an IEP or a 504. It kind of depends on what the issues are and what the diagnoses are. One more is, what do I say to teachers who think that my child is just lazy or not motivated? So this is a great question, because this is what happens. Like, this is ADHD when it's like, if the kids are bouncing out of their seats, if they're super hyper, most people are like, oh, they have ADHD, they can't concentrate, like they're jumping from things to things. But that, and there's a part of it where it's like they're super motivated, like they have impulse control issues, right? It's not that they're not active, they're too active. But there's also a part of ADHD that's executive functioning skills that have to do with motivation and the ability to move forward. So a lot of kids with ADHD actually get told or labeled as lazy or unmotivated. And some of that is because they can hyper focus on something 1 minute and then, not want to do anything at all. Part of that is because it's very difficult for them, even with the tasks they like, to get into the task. So they're very distracted until they get into the task, which can look like, a lack of motivation or laziness. At home, it's not like they're looking around and thinking, what can I do to be helpful today? If you have a kid like that, you're probably not listening to this. And there's not the forethought, right? There's very little hindsight and very little forethought. There's now and not now. And so, and they have strong opinions about what they want to do and not want to do. And so there's things that we do to help you kind of set them up to have more success, but to also know what's coming, how to help them transition, how to help them to learn how to use executive functioning skills that help them to get involved in things. And there's things that we do as teachers or parents that create a lack of motivation in kids. And one of them is like any trying to motivate somebody out of fear. Like, if you don't do this, then you're going to fail. And if you fail, you're going to have to repeat the 4th grade. And if you're, and we just go on and on with this, like thinking that we're going to scare them straight, right? And that's not going to work. Like, their brain doesn't work like that. There's now and not now. And so, but the other part of that is that motivation can't just come from a reward. Their ability to hold on to that I'm working for this reward is really limited. It works sometimes, but not consistently. So this is a lot of executive skill functioning that has to be developed. So much of it you can do as a parent, and some of it, like if your school is interested in learning more about things that they can do to help their kids that are on IEPs or 504s, you should tell them about me, because I go to schools a lot and do workshops and help the teachers to understand this, help you as the parent to understand why getting one thing of math done is really, really hard for these kids. And it's not because they're not smart or they're lazy or they're not motivated. So thank you for listening. And feel free to share this video, like and subscribe, and I will talk to you later.